The Crusadia Archetype was released in the booster set Cybernetic Horizon in July 2018 in the TCG. What I really love about this archetype is that it's so easy to learn and use, which makes it the perfect deck for a new player just getting into the game. Teaching people how to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Sometimes feels like you need a 4-year degree, and for those who I've taught how to play, I've used Crusadia to do it. This being a primarily link-focused deck has the capability to teach the fundamentals of Exceed summoning because most of them share the levels 4 and 3, and Arboria specifically is a tuner, making it possible to synchro summon and do some Halki Fibrax shenanigans. The archetype is also fairly versatile. With Kaijus, they become a simple OTK deck, or throw Kyoto Waterfront and turn Gamma Seal into an Omni Negate. There is also the Danger Thunder Dragons, Guard Dragons, and even a Mech Knight Crusadia variant that came in first at a regional in the Netherlands in October 2018. The deck can be as simple or as complicated as you want to make it. There's not too many archetypes that come to mind that has the capability of being both friendly to beginners, but also fun and powerful for experienced players. This versatility makes it somewhat unique in Yu-Gi-Oh! As it's capable of adapting to pretty much any mechanic. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down the entire Crusadia archetype, card by card, what each of their effects are, and the archetype's impact on the game as a whole. If you enjoy videos like this, give it a like and subscribe to the channel for future archetype breakdowns. We start with Crusadia Maximus, a level 4 psychic light monster with 1600 attack and 1000 defense with the following effect. You can special summon this card from your hand in defense position to your zone a link monster points to. You can only special summon Crusadia Maximus once per turn this way. You can target one Crusadia link monster you control. This turn, if it battles an opponent's monster, any battle damage it inflicts to your opponent is doubled. Also, other monsters you control cannot attack. You can only use this effect to Crusadia Maximus once per turn. One of the cogs in the Crusadia OTK, Maximus is overall a pretty good monster. He has a decent special summoning condition, allowing you to bring him to the field easily to either use his effect, use his link material, use his Exceed material, and so on. All of the main deck Crusadia monsters have the same special summoning condition, so I will only be reading off their unique effects moving forward in this video. Late game, he can be a dead draw without another Crusadia monster in the hand because his stats are not that impressive and can't really do anything on his own, but the point of this deck is to punch your opponent into the Shadow Realm. The next monster is Crusadia Draco, a level 4 dragon wind monster with 600 attack and 2000 defense with the following effect. If this card is normal or special summoned to a zone a link monster points to, you can target one Crusadia card in your graveyard except Crusadia Draco, add it to your hand. You can only use this effect to Crusadia Draco once per turn. Draco is one of the key cards when using guard dragons in Crusadia and even has a presence in some Dragon Link variants. In combination with a Crusadia link monster that we will talk about later on, you can create some fairly impressive boards. However, with Guard Dragon LP being banned, this is sadly nowhere near as powerful as it used to be. Because of this, the OTK version of Crusadia would be the most ideal way to play this strategy. As for Draco, his effect is pretty good overall, providing you an easy way to recur a Crusadia monster from the graveyard to use again to link climb or extend your plays in general. Up next is Crusadia Leonis, a level 3 beast earth attribute monster with 1200 attack and 1600 defense with the following effect. You can target one Crusadia link monster you control. If it attacks a defense position monster this turn, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. You can only use this effect to Crusadia Leonis once per turn. Considered to be the weakest of the Crusadia monsters, Leonis is used more for his name and his level than his effect itself. It can come in handy in specific scenarios, but piercing damage is not really a relevant effect nowadays. However, it can ensure your OTK if your opponent is playing defense. It's still welcome because it can service as an extender and further improve your board. Next up is Crusadia Arboria, a level 3 warrior water attribute tuner monster with 800 attack and 1800 defense with the following effect. If a Crusadia monster you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish this card from your field or graveyard instead. You can only use the effect of Crusadia Arboria once per turn. Arboria is pretty good. Her protection effect is very relevant as the Crusadia monsters have no real protection themselves. Her level can be somewhat annoying as a tuner since you would ideally like it to be level 4 in most cases, but overall there's a lot of good stuff here. It's worth experimenting with her because Halki Fibrax is a stupidly powerful card. The last main deck monster is Crusadia Reclusia, a level 3 spellcaster fire attribute monster with 400 attack and 2000 defense with the following effect. If this card is normal or special summoned to a zone a link monster points to, you can target one Crusadia card you control and one card your opponent controls, destroy them. You can only use this effect to Crusadia Reclusia once per turn. A fun interaction with Reclusia is when you do special summon him to a zone a link monster points to and use his effect, you can banish Arboria in your graveyard and keep him around to extend your plays. Reclusia has even found himself in Burning Abyss and Salamangreat variants. Overall, he is pretty fantastic, and it's great the deck has a piece of spot removal like this that can apply to any cards on the the field. Now we move on to the spell cards. First up is Crusadia Testament, a quick play. Activate one of these effects. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to the activation of your Crusadia monster effects this turn. Or, after damage calculation, if your Crusadia Link monster destroys an opponent's monster by battle, draw cards equal to your monster's Link rating. You can only activate one Crusadia Testament per turn. This card is solid, especially in the OTK variant. It helps ensure that your Crusadia monster's effects can go through, especially since this is typically a go second strategy, and if you're already ahead, it can give you some serious card advantage. I'm a huge fan of this card and I prefer to run it at 3, but it's worth experimenting with the card and the ratios. Next up is Crusadia Power, another quick play with the following effect. Target one Crusadia monster you control. That Crusadia monster is unaffected by card effects this turn except its own. You can only activate one Crusadia Power per turn. This is an in-archetype Forbidden Lance, which inherently makes it useful. However, for as good as this effect is, you typically don't want to max out on them. Target protection from other card effects for one of your Crusadia monsters sounds great, and it is, but you typically don't need more than one, considering you can search this card from the deck if necessary. As much as I like this card, it can be a bit of a brick, so I would experiment with the ratios, but don't run more than 2. The last spell card is Crusadia Revival, a field spell. All Crusadia Link monsters on the field gain 500 attack. Once per turn, you can target one Crusadia Link monster you control. This turn, even if this card leaves the field, it can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each. Also, other monsters you control cannot attack. To be blunt, this field spell is not very good. It doesn't offer any protection and only provides the attack increase to the Crusadia Link monsters. However, this doesn't mean it's not useful. Typically, you would only run one copy of this in the Crusadia OTK, since it's effectively giving the Link monster you would be using to end the game an additional 500 attack and the ability to attack everything your opponent controls, ending the game if it didn't happen during your first attack. It's a one-trick pony, so maxing out on this is not really recommended. And that's it for the spell cards. Moving on, we have 2 trap cards in the archetype, and we will start with Crusadia Vanguard. It's a continuous trap with the following effect. When you activate this card, you can also tribute one Crusadia or World Legacy monster. If you did, special summon one Crusadia or World Legacy monster with a different name from your deck or graveyard. While you control a Crusadia Link monster, your opponent's monsters can only target Link monsters for attacks. You can only activate one Crusadia Vanguard per turn. This is actually a pretty good trap card. Like all Crusadia spells and traps, it's easily searchable from the deck, and we will go over that soon, but this can be a helpful piece of disruption because you can use this to summon World Crown to disrupt your opponent's extra deck monsters effects, or World Armor to search for any World Legacy card and add it from your deck to your hand. The disruption that this card can give you is pretty versatile and is worth experimenting with. You won't typically find this card in the OTK-centric builds, but I find myself adding it in from time to time because I just love what this card can do. The other trap and final main deck card is Crusadia Crawler, another continuous trap. Special summon this card as an effect monster, an Insect Earth level 2 with 300 attack and 2400 defense. This card is also still a trap. If this card is special summoned by this effect to a zone a Link monster points to, you can add one World Legacy card from your deck to your hand. Like Crusadia Vanguard, this card has its usefulness. Again, typically not in the OTK-centric builds, but like World Armor, it's able to add any World Legacy card from your deck to your hand simply by summoning this card to a spot a Link monster points to. Unlike Vanguard, it can do this all on its own without the need to tribute a Crusadia monster to get there. There's arguments to be made for either one, so experimentation is key. If you run any, I wouldn't recommend more than one copy. Now we move on to the extra deck, all of which are Link monsters. Link climbing with this deck is extremely easy, and the effects the monsters provide have immediate benefits. We will start off with the first monster, Crusader Magius. He's a Link 1 light spellcaster type monster with 100 attack, a down arrow, and requires one Crusadia monster, except Crusader Magius, with the following effect. Gains attack equal to the original attack of the monster this card points to. The monster this card points to cannot attack. If an effect monster is special summoned to the zone this card points to, except during the damage step, you can add one Crusadia monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Crusadia Magius once per turn. Magius is the very first step in the Link climb. All you need is one Crusadia monster on the field to bring him out. Afterwards, you can use another Crusadia monster in your hand and use their special summon ability to trigger the effect of Magius, which nets you a search for another Crusadia monster. As long as you open with 2 different Crusadia monsters, you will always be able to search out the ones you will need for the OTK, and Magius makes this brutally simple. The next monster is Crusader Regulus, a Link 2 light beast type monster with 1000 attack, an up and down arrow that requires 2 effect monsters, including a Crusadia monster, with the following effect. Gains attack equal to the combined original attack of all monsters this card points to. Monsters this card points to cannot attack. If an effect monster is special summoned to a zone zone this card points to, except during the damage step. You can add one Crusadia spell or trap card from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect to Crusadia Regulus once per turn. Regulus is a fantastic card because it gives you access to the entirety of the Crusadia spells and traps. This is typically how you will search out the field spell for the OTK, or Testament and Power to help ensure everything goes according to plan. Regardless of the build, Regulus is a wonderful addition and is critical in the more pure Crusadia focused builds. The other link too is Crusadia Espatha, a light warrior type monster with 500 attack, a down and left arrow that requires 2 effect monsters, including a Crusadia monster, with the following effect. Gains attack equal to the original attack of any monster this card points to. A monster this card points to cannot attack. Once per turn, if an effect monster is special summoned to a zone this card points to, except during the damage step, you can target one monster in either player's main monster zone, except this card, move it to another main monster zone on its controller's field. Back in the day, any card that moved cards to different zones would have been brushed off and considered garbage. People barely played with columns for years. However, this card is a staple in the Crusadia Guard Dragon variant. It allowed you to be able to do some fairly impressive plays with ease, allowing you to use Draco to summon LP, and using Espatha to move LP one zone to the right to start the combo. Like I said earlier, you can still do a similar play with Pisty, but it's nowhere near as good without LP to summon a dragon from the deck. Espatha still has its usefulness though, because it's able to move a monster on your opponent's field to a zone our next monster points to, Crusadia Echomax. He's a Link 3 Cybers type light monster with 2000 attack, a bottom left, bottom right, and up arrow that requires 2+ effect monsters, including a Link monster, with the following effect. Gains attack equal to the combined original attack of all monsters this card points to. Monsters this card points to cannot attack. Once per turn, quick effect. You contribute one Crusadia or World Legacy monster this card points to, then target one face-up card your opponent controls. Negate its effects until the end of this turn. Echomax is the final stage when it comes to the OTK. Using Maximus and Kaijus, you can easily hit for 8,000 plus damage in a single turn and end the duel right there, provided your opponent doesn't have an out. The on-the-spot effect negation is really useful as well, making any opponent's face-up cards useless. With Arboria in the grave, Echomax can be pretty difficult to deal with if your opponent doesn't have the appropriate cards or resources to get rid of it or stop its attack. It's a pretty formidable boss monster that just hits like a truck. However, there is one more monster that goes above Echomax that is inherently much stronger and arguably way more difficult to get rid of. Mech Knight Crusader Avermax is a Link 4 light Cybers type monster with 3000 attack, requires 2+ monsters special summon from the extra deck, a left, right, and bottom right arrows with the following effect. While this Link summon card is on the field, your opponent cannot target this card with card effects. Also, their monsters cannot target monsters for attacks except this one. Once per battle during damage calculation, if this card battles a special summon monster, quick effect. You can make this card gain attack equal to that opponent's monster's attack during that damage calculation only. If this Link summon card you control is sent to the graveyard by your opponent, you can shuffle one card on the field into the deck. Avermax is pretty ridiculous. If you use IP Masquerena when you summon Avermax, it becomes practically invincible, being immune to destruction by card effects, targeting, and has a quick effect to gain the attack of a monster it does battle with. The only real way to get him off the field is through some form of non-targeting removal like Dingirsu or Kaijus, which to be fair has become more common nowadays. Regardless, Avermax is an absolute beast of a card. And that's the breakdown. Crusadia to me is one of the most fun archetypes I've ever played with. The artwork is cool and interesting, the playstyle is fun and engaging, and really makes you feel like you're doing something when you play with it. It's versatile enough that you can experiment with different cards and engines, and has enough synergy with different mechanics to keep it fresh no matter how you slice it. I don't think the Crusadia archetype really needs any new additions, and functions really well even today. While it's nowhere near as prevalent as it was in 2019 and 2020, I would not be surprised in the slightest if this deck made a resurgence as an engine or in tandem with another archetype in the future, as it was with Thunder Dragons. Whatever the future holds, I'm certain this is not the last time we've seen Crusadia.